May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. I'm going to read the fourth installment of the Zen Mind Beginner's Mind lecture audio. But first, I want to tell you a couple of things that are happening here. Yesterday was my 12th day since COVID symptoms set in that were all fairly mild, like a flu that wasn't too bad. It was a light little worse first couple of days, coughed some, coughed more than I wanted, but not too much. And after that, it was sort of like a mild flu. I worked every day, and after the first few days, I worked sort of a lot, but I was sleeping more and taking naps. So anyway, yesterday I had a date at the to do some recording. So the guys I'm working with, they know I've had COVID, but they know it's also over 10 days. So even if I still tested positive, I'm supposed to really not be contagious anymore. But I tested myself with our little home kit. We could drink about 25, and she brought a package of them, and she's giving them to people. And she's tested herself a few times. Anyway, I tested negative, so I was real happy about that. I was a little surprised because I did feel, still a little bit down, sort of lazy. I feel lazy today, but I've been doing stuff. But we're going to walk to dinner at an Italian restaurant near here tonight. It's about a 20-minute walk. And that's the first time since COVID set in that we've gone out together to walk somewhere. She took a walk yesterday with the dog. And she said it wasn't bad. She was worried it'd be as bad as after she had dengue, where she said, oh, everything seemed like so far for a while, I was like trudging until she got her energy back. We worry more about dengue than about COVID here. So anyway, I was a little worried that our local driver, Nyoman, our BIMO driver, wouldn't want to come, that he'd be scared. Because I remember when Kadek, our housekeeper, had COVID, he was terrified. I mean, I said, hey, Nyoman, would you bring this food over to Kadek? No, he wouldn't do it. I said, all you have to do is go hand it to somebody at the gate. He wouldn't do it. He really wouldn't do it. And after she came back, and it had been 2 weeks, and she had been testing negative, and he didn't feel comfortable being around her. But I guess he's gotten used to it because I called him up and asked him if he could pick me up and take me to the ATM and to the studio, and he said, all right. I didn't tell him I was negative till he got here. And anyway, I guess he's learning. It was sort of like the AIDS thing, People didn't want to be near somebody with AIDS until finally they learned, well, that didn't really hurt anything. I used to, when Isan Tommy Dorsey had AIDS, or he was HIV positive, I guess you'd say. He lived over at the Hartford Street Zindo, and he'd come in the Page Street building. If I was there, I wasn't living there then, but, well, no, maybe I was there. Oh, yeah, I was head cook there in 87, the year before I went to Japan. Yeah, he'd walk in the building, and I'd go up and give him a big kiss, right on the lips, and freak people out. We used to do that anyway, years ago. make people wonder what was happening between us, and because I'd stay in his room when I was coming in from Tassajara and stuff. But he has a nice sense of theater, and we have fun. So anyway, uh, Nyoman felt fine about it, and when he brought me home on the way home, we stopped and got some pulsa, which is like you get pulsa for your phone or for your electricity for your home. It's like buying energy, right? So at the post office, she had sent me a message. It's just 5 minutes away, and I know the woman who runs it. And if she's away, she was sick. Post office is closed, and it's just a little tiny post office. She's very helpful, and it's so convenient. Anyway, she sent me a message. It was time to pay the water bill. I pay it there. So on the way home from the studio, we stopped, and normally I'd tell him to go on, leave me there, and I'll walk home. But I still was lazy. I thought, nah, I don't want to walk home. So I paid the water bill, and I paid for the pulse. And then when you pay for the pulse, the electricity, she gives me a receipt that has numbers on it that I have to then write into our little box where it comes in. And she writes them out real big for me. It's just like printed out, and sometimes the ink isn't real dark. She writes it out real big for me. And she has our numbers and everything. So I just go in, and she knows what to do. And I just give her the money, and she gives me the change. I give her a little bit of change for her, and she says, "Oh, for my grandchildren?" I say, "Yes." So anyway, we went home, and then I said, and Nyoman came in, and he brought some stuff I'd taken to the studio, and then he like sweep the courtyard and do some stuff. And I said, "Hey, Nyoman, would you fill these numbers, write these numbers in for me?" And so I went inside, and he was writing the numbers. We stand on a little stool and write them in the electric panel, or not the panel. It's just a box that connects us to downtown just for that sort of thing, for seeing how much we have left. And so while I was writing it, the electricity went off in the house. Boom! The fan stopped. It was, it was much darker. I said, "Hey, Nyoman, what'd you do?" He said, "I didn't do anything." I said, "What do you mean you didn't do anything? You were just standing up there and you're writing, and the electricity went off. What did you hit there's a switch down below. Did you hit the switch and turn it off by accident?" "No." "Well, come on, man, you did some." Anyway, like if I'd have been a lynch mob and it had been something serious, we would have hanged him. He was guilty, right? He did it. Wrong. It was, I think it was not quite a coincidence. It was a problem downtown, but I think it was just waiting for the next time we entered numbers to get it, the amount of pulse we bought up to date, that it, it triggered something, and and the electricity went out. But, it took us a while to realize that. And poor Nyoman, he kept trying to enter the numbers. I said, "Nyoman," and I did too, "Nyoman, if you enter the numbers and they're wrong, it doesn't do that. Look, it says preksa, which means check." "I've never seen that." He said, "I've never seen that." So then my friend Danu comes over, bringing us some special pink coconuts. I didn't want to say kalapa, which is about Indonesian for coconut. And they were a gift from Alice, who kicked him out, but she called him up. She was very nice and asked him to do some errands. And she divorced him, too. First time she forgave him, second time she didn't. Anyway, So Dono, sure, it's the wrong numbers, right? I go, no, Dono, I really don't think it's the wrong numbers. And so I'm going to the post office. I say, no, look here, I'll call Wyon for you. I say, Wyon, I'm sorry, but anyway, I have this friend who's convinced, blah, blah, blah. I put her on. So he talked to her. And in the meantime, I'd called our electrician, Mudik. He was on his way over. And so until Mudik arrived, we had Danu and Yoma trying to write the numbers and trying to figure out what's wrong and looking at what other switches and buttons and things. Then Mudik arrived right away, looked at it, called the central office and said, they're gonna check it. And then they call him and they say, he said, it's their fault. It's down in there. They have to reset something. They're going to call me and give me some numbers. It'll be back on. So I went and made him some tea because I don't need electricity to make tea. And Mudik always likes some black tea with some spices and a little of our almond cashew milk. And we drank that. Well, Danu drank an orange juice drink he'd brought. So anyway, we got the electricity back, and Nyoman was absolved of all guilt. So that's one thing that happened yesterday. To me, the funny part was just how guilty he looked. The poor guy. And Nyoman really gets embarrassed if he does anything wrong. And so it really had a comedic aspect to it. But we all laughed when it came back on. I tell you, we were very happy. Okay, so now after all that nonsense, I'm going to give you some Zen nonsense. First, I'm going to play the fourth clip from the Beginner's Mind lecture that Shunryu Suzuki gave on November 11th, 1965. This is unedited, except I took the coughs out. But the spacing, everything else is just as he said it. Oh, I do want to tell you something. If you happen to notice in the second clip, I said there was this part where I disagreed with the verbatim, where the verbatim, it had while, and I said, I think he's saying for a while. I mean, it makes sense. While doesn't make sense, but he does do that sort of thing. Start saying a word and then say it again, So, and Peter Ford, who is working all the time on these lectures, and Wendy Pierce, who's worked a great deal, and on this new lectures that Zen Center found in the box a while back, working with Engaged Wisdom, Shundo David Hay, and Charlie Wilson. Mainly Shundo is the one who's doing the hands-on audio work, but Charlie does it too. So Peter and Wendy had shot me down. They said no, they both heard while. But then yesterday, an email came from Shundo. He'd been doing some really careful listening and said he agreed with me, which brought a tie vote. And he gave his reasons, which were so observant. I mean, he said it could be either listening to them, yes, and it does sort of sound like wow, but the spacing and the tone and everything is not like if he was saying wow. It's like if it was following the word for. I was so impressed. And then he said, Charlie, I had been working with some special noise reduction stuff on that interference that came in the lecture and blotted out some words, and he's revealed some new words. Boy, that is really good work. I wouldn't, I do noise reduction, but that's pretty good. Whatever he he's doing. He's got, he's really state of the art stuff. Although I didn't like the level they had, that lecture had. I optimized the level to work on it. So anyway, all right, enough of all that stuff. Here we go with the fourth clip of this lecture. So you're going to hear Suzuki saying it, then I'm going to read it, and then we're going to have Suzuki saying it again.
If we keep our beginner's mind, we keep our precepts. When we lose our beginner's mind, we will lose all the precepts. And for Zen students, the most important thing is not to be dualistic or not. We should not lose our self-satisfied state of mind. We should not be too demanding, or we should not be too greedy. Our mind should be always rich and self-satisfied. When our mind becomes demanding, or when we become longing for something, we will violate our precepts, not to kill, not to be immoral, not to steal, or not to tell lie, and so on. Those are based on our greedy mind. When our mind is satisfied, we keep our precepts. When we ourselves is always self-satisfied, we have our original beauty. And we can practice good. And we are always true to ourselves.
If we keep our beginner's mind, we keep our precepts. When we lose our beginner's mind, we will lose all the precepts. And for Zen students, the most important thing is not to be dualistic. We should not lose our self-satisfied state of mind. We should not be too demanding, or we should not be too greedy. Our mind should always be rich and self-satisfied. When our mind becomes demanding, or when we are longing for something, we will violate our precepts, not to kill, not to be immoral, not to steal, and not to tell a lie, and so on. Those are based on our greedy mind. When our mind is satisfied, we keep our precepts. When we ourselves are always self-satisfied, we have our original beauty, and we can practice good, and we are always true to ourselves. I did real-time editing while I read, just a little. That's so interesting. If we keep our beginner's mind, we keep our precepts. he sort of leaves it up to the person. The student goes, we keep the precepts by just having a, not thinking we know everything or anything, and just, practicing with a fresh mind and this and that. And we won't do anything to break the precepts. Wow, really? It's like a lot of people actually think, I won't do anything bad if I do that. That is something to think about. Because we can read it and go, oh, that's really good, yes. But what does it really mean? And what does it mean to keep the precepts, to have basically good conduct that doesn't harm others, right? Or yourself, doesn't that, and that leads to awakening, or that is awakening. It's interesting. He had such a non-literal, yet really sort of vibrant and meaningful understanding of precepts. It wasn't just some, read this list and do what it says. Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting. And, a lot of times people would say, oh, Suzuki never talked about precepts, really, because they wouldn't notice it. And I've read it. People saying he didn't talk about precepts, so that's why there were immoral things happening in Zen Center after he died. No, it's not because of that. It's because people are immoral. That's why we have precepts to try to guide ourselves into moral, wholesome behavior, because basically we have many urges that go against moral, wholesome behavior, and which can ultimately be harmful to ourselves and others. That's why we chant things. That's why we practice. That's why we make an effort. We chant. We do loving kindness stuff because we don't feel loving kindness. That's what I think. We really think loving kindness. We really are full of loving kindness. We don't need to chant anything about loving kindness. But I chant loving kindness stuff, because I look at myself and I go, and you know what? I accept it. Just don't think about it too much. All right. So let's listen to him say that again, and then we'll sign off. Thank you for bearing with me. Pardon my going on and on. So here we go.
If we keep our beginner's mind, we keep our precepts. When we lose our beginner's mind, we will lose all the precepts. And for Zen students, the most important thing is not to be dualistic, or not. We should not lose our self-satisfied state of mind. We should not be too demanding, or we should not be too greedy. Our mind should be always rich and self-satisfied. When our mind becomes demanding, or when we become longing for something, we will violate our precepts, not to kill, not to be immoral, not to steal, or not to tell lie, and so on. Those are based on our greedy mind. When our mind is satisfied, we keep our precepts. When we ourselves is always self-satisfied, we have our original beauty. And we can practice good. And we are always true to ourselves.
This has been a Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Puba of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sonora with Doggett Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.